here at the Bossanova Ballroom in Portland, and I'm about to get set up for filming this all-day event. So I'm going to take you on a tour of all the gear I brought with me and setting it all up here. So this is all the gear that I brought with me. It fits in rolly bag, rack box, bike bag, and backpack. But first I need some coffee, so I'm going to go solve that problem. So I've got this spot in the back here, and the presenters are all going to be up on the stage up in the front of the room. So I'm going to have one camera with me in the back here, and then also I'm going to set one up on that little ledge up there. And that'll give me a nice top-down angle without having to run a gigantic wire. I'm very excited about this upgrade they did, where they installed this little cable track that you can run cables down behind, which is so much better than having you do like a straight shot across the floor and taping it down. And last year, I had to go around the room anyway and just strap into these little hooks here. So I'm gonna go run that. 2 wires actually. One's gonna give me slides from the presenter and the other is feeding the projector. Next one is 150 feet, and this is going to the back. It's a rear projection this time, which I'm actually really excited about because it keeps things a little bit cleaner up here. So this whole thing is the best. This is the decimator, MDHX. So here I feed it in from the presenter's laptop. It both scales as well as converts to SDI. So it's got a scaler in it, and it sends me the exact format I need through here. Plus it has another HDMI out, which I can then feed the speaker confidence monitor up in the front. So I'm gonna run one cable here for the confidence monitor and then leave a cable up here for the podium once that gets in here. So I just finished all the cable runs, and I now am ready to start wiring this up. So here I've got my video box with all of my little breakout ports here. So I've got power, SDI, HDMI inputs into the ATEM, and then I've got a couple of USBs here. One is to connect into a USB hub internally, which is what I plug into my laptop, and that sort of gives me access to everything in here. This one actually is connected into a little video player internally, so I can play a video loop. Another data plug plugged into the hub so I can connect to external devices. This is just a power cable, which is ugly, hanging out here. A couple extra USB power ports just for fun. And then I've got my main network in, which I'm gonna connect the venue, and that connects into a little switch internally, which has a little Wi-Fi thing there, and then program out, SDI, program out, HDMI, and this feeds the projector. So this is the SDI that I just ran, which I'm feeding the projector from. So that's going into the aux out. This one down here is just a fan unit, and I actually switched it so that one is blowing in, one's blowing out to kind of get some air circulating in there. And then down at the very bottom is just a little filler with little brushes, so you can like still run wires through them, which is great for the power cord and the XLR cables that are running out of that. Power is always a challenge with these things, so I always bring one of these, which I plug into the back of my box. And that way I get conditioned power as well for everything I'm plugging into it, like laptops and the cameras and stuff. I just plugged in the power, so let's give this a shot, turn it on and see what happens. There we go. Time to set up the video booth now. I've got editing laptop that's gonna be running graphics. And this one is actually the screen for the switcher. So this is the multi-view for the switcher because I like having a bigger screen for that. Packed all my cables from the desk in this little pouch, so they're easy to find. Stream Deck, which I'll be using to actually control the switcher. Mixer to get sound into the switcher. So I'm using the Sling Studio to broadcast to YouTube because it actually does a very good job, and I can do a little bit of mixing in that I wouldn't be able to do easily in the ATEM, like adding a little bug in the corner. Plus that also means I can run audio to the live stream that I don't record, because I want to put music out there for the breaks and things like that. Do I have enough plugs? Let's see. I hope I don't need any more power because that was the last plug. This monitor is powered over USB and has a micro HDMI input, so I can actually run it power line off of my switcher, because I have a USB power bricks, a bunch of USB power bricks inside, and then connect this to the multi-view out. And then these two run right up into here. Then I'm gonna run my laptop output into HDMI input into the switcher. That will be the break screen. This USB cable plugs in here, and this brings everything into my laptop. So now my laptop has access to the USB hub in here, which is got an Ethernet adapter inside there, so it connects into the network through that one wire. All right, what's next? Next, I need to run the line for the Sling Studio to stream. I've got HDMI in, which runs from the program out, which is just barely long enough. Look at that. And I'm gonna run audio in from this iPod, so I can have music going into the live stream that does not get recorded into the ATEM. And I've got a selection of songs on the iPod there that are either Creative Commons or royalty free, or my own songs that I can just play without worrying about copyright notices there on YouTube. That iPod gets powered from back here. iPad that controls the Sling Studio gets power from over here. And then, of course, lastly is connecting the Sling Studio hub via a wire into the rest of this network over here. And with any luck, that now has internet. So, and the last things to connect is the Stream Deck into the back here, which is connected to the internal USB hub. And that connects it into the computer that way. All right, so I have everything set up here now, all wired up and all connected, and it is ready to roll. So let me give you a quick overview of what I have all set up here, starting with this iPad here. So this iPad is actually just to control the Sling Studio, and what I've got here is I've got only one feed coming into it from the program out from the ATEM switcher, and then this way I can do the graphics on this just for the live stream and not burn them into the recording I'm making. So I can go and add the event logo up in the top there. I can go and add the sponsors to the bottom. And that is what will be streaming out to YouTube. This is also my backup recording of the program. So this is recording the raw input HDMI in to a file in case something goes wrong with the Blackmagic recorder. So next I have the main switcher box here. This is of course the Blackmagic ATEM switcher, and its little recorder that records onto two different SD cards here. I have two different monitors up here, and you'll notice that neither of those is the multi-view, and that's because when this is the multi-view, it turns out it is very small. Each little camera is a tiny little corner there, and it was a little bit hard to see what was going on. One is my main program out, and the other is actually aux out, which I use to feed the projector in the room. So the projector that you'll see back there, I'm actually feeding from this box. So I get to control what goes onto the projector using the aux out of the switcher. Then moving up, I have my multi-view monitor as well as the audio recorder. So the multi-view monitor is this neat little, very thin little panel that is about as thick as a laptop, and that is just an HDMI monitor powered over USB. It's plugged into the back there, and that is the multi-view out of the ATEM. Next up is the audio recorder. This is a new thing I'm trying out for the first time. This actually has XLR outputs which go into the Blackmagic, and I'm hoping that provides a better audio signal. In a couple of previous ones, I had a terrible time getting the sound from a recorder into the Blackmagic because of the type of cable I was using. So I'm hoping this improves it. It's also recording the audio feed as a backup because I don't always trust everything to make a good recording. And that turns out it paid off in the past. My rule is basically to have 2 copies of everything recorded. And I am getting audio fed into this recorder from the main soundboard. Luckily, I'm not managing audio for this. Okay, what's next? Next up is the Stream Deck. So the Stream Deck I have set up using the companion software, and this is again the first time I'm using this, but I'm pretty excited about it. So I have a couple of different screens of buttons in here. I have one that controls the preview on the ATEM, so you can see as I am toggling between here, It's controlling the preview source on the switcher, so I can even bring in picture-in-picture, which I will use for the slides, of course. When the slides are up on the screen, I can also have the presenter there, and then I can use the cut button to bring that over to program out. Page 2 of the Stream Deck is actually just a straight-up cut, switches program out. Sometimes I do actually just live switch everything and don't use the preview. The other cool thing is that because this is in Companion, I can actually program multiple functions for each button. So, for example, when I cut to this camera, it also kills the picture-in-picture effect on the keyer. So this is a great way to just quickly switch cameras, and I can also bring in picture-in-picture if I want to, and then it kills it when I switch over to another angle. So I'll probably be using that for a good part of the program as well. Page 3, this is controlling the graphics. So you'll see here, if I switch to showing the graphics on the projector, then these buttons actually now control what the graphics are displaying. So I've got sponsors at the bottom, which I can bring in and out. I have a ticker, which I probably won't use. I put the sponsors there, but I'm not sure I'll actually use that. And this is by default showing this sort of break screen, which we use between speakers at the event. This is all running H2R graphics from John Barker here to record, and that program has been a fantastic addition to this whole setup. So the graphics program itself is running off of this laptop here. I've got H2R graphics, and this laptop is connected through HDMI out into the switcher as one of my inputs. I've got the whole schedule loaded up in this spreadsheet, and that feeds the break screen. This computer is also running the ATEM software, which I probably won't use very much, but it's good to have a sort of backup of all that controls, because if something goes wrong with a keyer, for example, on my macros, then I can always tweak it there. But I don't really like to use this for the actual program because it is not the best laid out interface. I much prefer a physical interface like this Stream Deck. So here is a little iPod, and I loaded up with a bunch of Creative Commons or my own music on here, and this is what I can use to play out on the live stream between sessions. So the audio from the iPod is actually going out to this Link Studio because I don't need it in the switcher, and I would rather not accidentally record that into the recording I'm making. This lets me isolate the music out onto... There's another one back there somewhere. All right, got the projector set up, so that's running now. I'm actually feeding it for reals. So that means I can make the projector switch between two different images just by pressing this button. And we can see it happening in the room up here as well. So that is super powerful. I love that I can do that now super easily. And I know I could technically do it all with a macro in the ATEM itself, but it's just so much easier editing buttons on the Stream Deck. And then lastly is this laptop, which I am using to edit the videos live. I would rather not have very much work to do afterwards. So during all of the breaks, I will be dumping the footage off of the SD card from the Blackmagic recorder into here, editing the videos, adding the title, trimming it, and publishing it to YouTube right away. So I did that last year, and I got through, I mostly kept up with the talks. I was only a little bit behind by the end of the day. So hoping I can do that again this year and avoid a lot of post-production work on that. So I think that's it. Looking forward to a good show and kicking this off first thing in the morning tomorrow. So wish me luck. Alright, so we just finished the first day of the conference and everything went pretty well. So I was able to post all but the last video already online on YouTube. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how I made that happen and what the workflow that I have set up here is. The first trick to doing this is to have two SD cards. Ideally a dual slot recorder like the Blackmagic HyperDeck. It has two SD card slots, so you can swap which SD card it's recording onto. So I have two of the same SD cards. They're 64 gigabytes. So while the session is going on, I am, live mixing with the switcher here, editing that live, doing all of the cuts between slides, picture-in-picture, and close-up speaker view, wide-angle view. Doing all that live is recording that onto the SD card. As soon as that presenter is done, I stop the recording there, pop out that SD card, switch to the other one, hit record again. So I pop that card out, take it over to the computer, and then dump the footage onto the drive. Here's the trick with doing this in a way where you're not going to end up like screwing yourself over later and losing footage. So I take the SD card, pop it into the computer, copy one copy to the hard drive locally, and as soon as that's done, copy that to this external hard drive I have plugged in as well. So I have an external 2 terabyte hard drive SSD plugged in here, and that is keeping a backup of everything that I put onto here. Because as soon as I copy the data off of the SD card, I need to erase that card and put it back in the recorder. So that's the trick, is that I never want to have only one copy of any footage. I've also got high-speed SD cards and SSD, so I can read off the SD card at 300 megabytes a second and write to this SSD at 300 megabytes a second. These files have all been around 25 to 30 gigabytes for a 30 or 40 minute talk. So that's a bit of data to deal with, and the fast SD cards and the fast drives are really what make this actually possible. So as soon as I have the footage on the hard drive, I then drag it over into Premiere and add it to the project. Now in Premiere, I've already set up ahead of time a bin for each speaker, which means I have a place to drop that footage into immediately during the event. It sounds silly, but it takes a while to type this out, and it's better to do that ahead of time instead of trying to do it on the fly. So I just drag over the footage into Premiere and then create a new sequence for that speaker, pop in the title slides and the closing slides, and then export that. And that gives me the finished product, and it is pretty quick. It only takes a couple of seconds to do that, and I can actually do it between breaks. There's been 15-minute breaks between every other speaker today. One of the longest parts in this process is actually uploading to YouTube. So once I'm done with the video in Premiere, I let that export out of Premiere and then drag the file over into YouTube, upload that. Set the metadata. I have the schedule in a tab open here, so I am just copying and pasting text from the speaker and the title, the talk title and the talk description. That just gets copied over really quick into the YouTube description, and then I hit publish. And most of the time I am just waiting for the YouTube upload while the next speaker is already on. So that's really the trick, is just having this workflow already set up, having all the folders pre-labeled and pre-tagged, having a place to put the footage as soon as it comes in, and just being on top of it. It's a wrap time to tear everything down now. This will be fun.